Greetings swingers and welcome to episode 11 of the Electro Swing Podcast, brought to you by Electro Swing Thing and hosted by me, Offbeat. In this episode, I sit down with the enigmatic and hugely talented Riff Kitten, a US-based producer and classically trained musician with a taste for the dark and dramatic. We dive into his creative process, the eclectic influences behind his sound, and the moody, sinister edge that gives his music its unmistakable vibe. Riff Kitten also sheds light on his collaborations with former guests Alanna, Lyes and Atom Smith, as well as the iconic singer-songwriter Annella. In the quickfire round, Riff Kitten opens up about some of the personal challenges he's experienced with disappointment and self-doubt in the music industry, all adding up to a very honest and heartfelt conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 11 of the Electro Swing Podcast, featuring the one and only Riff Kitten. Riff Kitten, welcome to the Electro Swing Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome, man. It's good to chat. Anyone who isn't familiar with you or your music already, please can you just give yourself a quick introduction, who you are and what music you make?
Sure. My name's Andrew Riley, aka Riff Kitten. I'm living in the in northern U.S. in the Minneapolis area. In 2019, I started my Riff Kitten project basically as like an outlet for all kinds of music. In the beginning, I had some chill and down tempo stuff coming out, but I started dabbling in electro swing, and that felt like home for me. So I just kept going with that. And to describe my music, I'd say that maybe pushes the boundaries of what's normally thought of as swing. Some tracks have the vintagey vibe, but there's like a big injection of like electronica, cinematic music, classical. It's kind of hard to describe, so check it out if you haven't heard it.
So I'd love to know a little bit about your creative process when it comes to making a track from scratch. Do you have like a set way of doing things? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about it?
I guess I don't really have like a guideline or a methodology for how I write a track. And I think I've learned over the years that you have to follow the inspiration, which can come in like many different forms. Like sometimes I can just be noodling on the piano. Sometimes I'll find like a new sound in my in Cubase and my sequencer that just inspires me, or I'd say maybe like 50% of the time I hear some awesome new track and something about it just like captures me, captivates me, and I just want to figure out how the artist did that. And then, then I think about it and think, maybe I could do something similar, put my own spin on it. I guess I've learned that it's different every time.
And do you find that you can sit down kind of without inspiration and play around with stuff and an idea will come to you? Or do you have to wait until inspiration hits and then just start working there and then?
That's another good question, because I think I heard something about the composer Stravinsky. He would treat writing music as like a 9 to 5 kind of. And I took that to heart because right now I'm completely focused on music. And, I put in at least 8 hours a day. I'm lucky to be able to do that. Yeah. Sometimes, it's flowing and sometimes it's not. And either way, I try and put in the time, or if, I don't have any good creative ideas, I'll just mix or do something else. So, I guess it's different. I don't always have that inspiration though, but there are times where I can just kind of mess around in my sequencer or on the piano. And it's, I'll get intrigued by something and keep going with it.
A couple of people have said about inspiration that it never comes at a convenient time. So you might sit down at like 9 a.m. and be like, well, I'm going to do 8 hours of creative work today. And you won't get any ideas and it'll be a slog. And then you might be lying in bed at like midnight about to go to sleep and then you'll get an amazing idea.
Oh my God.
Do you find that?
So true. Yeah. Especially, sometimes like nearing bedtime when I get a little more tired, it's like my brain is kind of in a more calm but active state where like, I don't know, just random ideas will kind of flow through. And I think that's true. Like oftentimes it does come at inconvenient times and I find myself jumping out of bed, Doesn't matter how tired I was, I'll go downstairs, turn on the computer, and just get something down in 15 minutes and then go back to bed. Yeah.
She's a fickle mistress, inspiration.
Yeah, you can't chase a muse.
Okay, so you described your own music earlier, and obviously it's your music, so you would describe it best. But I would add to that I think there's like a bit of a darkness and a kind of like sinister but playful edge to a lot of stuff you do that kind of reminds me of, it's sort of Tim Burton-y. My question is that like a deliberate thing? Are you like, that's my style and I'm going to go for that? Or do you just find that naturally comes out when you're playing around and you get drawn in that direction?
All right. So the thing is, I oftentimes don't aim for that. Might be trying to write something like more fun and light and bouncy. And I'll find that my music just kind of sounds different. It doesn't sound like other electro swing. And I don't know why that is. I think a lot of people talk about like finding your voice in music. I think I've learned that it just kind of happens. And a lot of my music, I'm not even intending to write something specifically dark, but it'll just sound that way. And I think I've tried to embrace that because I do think it's something a little different. And Nick at Freshly Squeezed has kind of supported that path with branding and other things too. And so I just kind of roll with it now, you know. I'm not always intending to, but it kind of just does go in that direction.
Mm-hmm. I love it, man. It's such a cool sound. And like, I think there's so much room for that in electro swing, because electro swing can be very happy and clappy and fun, and that's great. And obviously that's why a lot of people get into it and love it. But if you do sort of transpose it to a more darker tone, it works perfectly. And there's so many kind of like electro swing Halloween playlists and stuff.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah, and your style fits so well into that. And I can fully imagine like a Tim Burton Disney movie with your kind of music as the soundtrack. It would work so well.
Well, that's a huge compliment. Thank you. I love Tim Burton stuff. Danny Elfman's music, the composer usually works with, I'd say. He's definitely an influence on me. Just very good composer. So I take that as a big compliment. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Definitely, man. I mean it. So we're going to move on to your kind of career now, specifically like stuff that you've released. So you said that your first release as Riff Kitten was 2019. Is that right?
Yep.
Cool. So what was that?
So that was an EP called Jazzy Cuts that I released through Electro Swing Thing. I just kind of cold emailed Wolfgang, and he was really supportive. He liked it, and he was a good like early mentor for me. I learned just a lot about music, and yeah, I think I released probably 4 or 5 things on Electro Swing Thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that. I thought you were a strictly Freshly boy. So you released that EP, and then in 2020 you released your first album. Is that right?
Yep. And
yeah,
I think it was the fall of 2020. Yeah. So that was Kitty Litter, and was, I'd say, a pretty successful project. Like, I felt really encouraged with my whole dark swing path, and people can embrace it. And yeah, I think for a lot of people, they tell me like, they'll say like, you know, was really kind of on that dark swing path. Not everything on there, but I think that sort of became my sound, and I think it established everything that I'm about as Riff Kitten, you know?
So that was on Freshly Squeezed, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then you've released, is it 4 albums in total with them?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's Kitty Litter, Gone Rogue, Bad Manners, and then Chaos Parade, which was last summer.
Mm-hmm. Cool titles, man. And very cool artwork as well for the albums. Do you have like an input on that and a kind of say in the sort of branding and the look and feel, or is that more the label that dictates that?
I definitely have a say, but I kind of Nick at Freshly Squeezed has a background in graphic design, and I really generally like what he does when he sends me like a demo artwork. I think it meshes with my identity and my personality, and generally I really like it. So maybe once in a while I have some input, but I think we vibe pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of that.
It looks wicked, man. I think the branding is like, consistent. And again, it touches on that sort of dark vibe, but not so dark that it's like really serious. It's kind of like that good mix of dark but fun at the same time. So 4 albums. do you feel that you've changed over time, and has in your sound has like evolved over that time, or are you sort of building on a kind of like a consistent vibe and theme? Like, how do you feel that you've changed over those 4 albums, if at all?
Yeah, I definitely feel like there are threads of continuity in my albums, but each one I'd say has evolved and sounds different from the one before it. That's both by design and not by design. You know, in some regards, you know, I want to evolve and change my sound just because as time goes on, I'm listening to new stuff, I'm inspired by new stuff, and it just kind of seeps into my writing. But people have told me like I have a signature piano sound, so things like that I think are consistent. I think I'm evolving, and it's more fun to evolve, you know, and not just do the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Do you feel like you have established your own voice and sound more as time has gone on as well? Like, do you sound, because they always say in like comedy, when people start doing comedy, that they just sound like the other the other comedians that they like, and then it takes a while for them to get the confidence to sound like themselves. Do you feel that's the case with you, or do you feel that you've been like authentically you from the off?
I definitely gain more confidence the farther I've gone on, but I always aim for authenticity. I've been there where I've been pushing an idea that just trying to like force it, you know, and it doesn't happen. So I'd say even back around when I released Kitty Litter in 2020, I'd scrap a lot of ideas that felt more forced. And it's like when you come up with an authentic idea, you kind of just know it, you know, there's something different about the way you feel about that track. So, but I mean,
you got like a gut feeling, haven't you? When you're like, this is me, and you know yourself when you're kind of like doing something that sounds like someone else, I guess.
What I've learned about that is I waste less time now because I realize when something is not inspired, I just like take a break, go for a walk, something else. Whereas in the past, I maybe like try and force something for hours, wasted energy, kind of.
Yeah. It was counterproductive, isn't it? Because I mean, I find like when I'm writing lyrics, if it's not coming naturally, that I will, again, I've learned from this, so I don't do this so much now. But in the past, I would be like, no, I'm going to sit here until I get it, like, and I'll punish myself, and I'll like beat myself up for not being able to do it. And then that makes you less and less creative because you're just getting like more frustrated. And it's like, it feels like you're sort of like digging into the dirt and the ground and like digging yourself into a hole. Whereas if you do what you say, take a break, go for a walk, have a shower, so often the idea will just naturally come to you out of nowhere. And you're like, where did that come from? But I could spend 4 hours looking at a page and write one line and be like, just getting less and less inspired as time goes on.
That is spot on for me too. Like I've had that exact same, you know, experience and conversation in my mind. Like I think it takes a little bit of experience and maybe maturity to come to that realization.
And also a bit of like letting go of the ego as well, I think, because like I don't think we're as in control of our inspiration as we think. Like you sort of said earlier, the muse, she'll come to you when she wants to, like you can't force it. So, and your kind of worth and value aren't necessarily wrapped up in what you create anyway. So to sit there and get angry is basically you saying to yourself, like, I'm not worthy until I've achieved this. But like, we don't always have the choice to do that.
Right. No, you sound like kind of an intuitive person as well. And I guess I try to stay in touch with that side of things because, I have it sometimes where like the idea just does fly into my brain out of nowhere and it'll become like one of my favorite songs eventually. And sometimes it takes very little effort. And I think it's true. You can't chase the muse because
mate, I've had that as well, man. Some of the best things I've ever written have been like in the worst conditions. It'll be like sat on a plane next to someone and like sort of scribbling lyrics and like a pad and like trying to make sure they can't see it because I'm like a bit embarrassed. And it'll be like some of the best stuff I've written. And there'll be other times where I'm like, right, got the apartment to myself. Like I've had a good night's sleep. Like I've got a whole day to do this. The conditions are perfect. And then I'll sit down and nothing will come.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I totally been there, man.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. I've spoken to Alanna, Lyes and Atom Smith on the podcast already. And the three of you collaborated on Alanna's album. So I've already heard from both of them, but I'm interested to hear your experience of what that experience of working on the album was like.
Yeah. So at that point, Alanna and I had already had like a couple collabs under our belt. She had contacted me about her solo project. At that point, it was just sort of like, hey, I think I might do this. And she wondered if I'd create like a couple of backing tracks for her lyrical ideas. And yeah, we went forward with that. And I think our writing chemistry is really good. So we were both kind of happy with the way they were sounding. So she sent them over to Freshly Squeezed. And, Nick and her came up with the idea of making a full album of her solo project. Yeah, to be honest, after it hit that level, I realized that at the time I was just so busy with like personal and professional things and projects. I took a bit of a step back and from the lead producer on that album, and then Adam Smith stepped up. And either way, I think Lyes here, her album, it's a great album, I think.
Yeah, when you work on a album collaboratively like that with another producer, is it like you'll work on one track, Atom will work on another track, and then half the tracks will be yours, half will be his? Or is it like you start a track and he does a bit to it and then you do a bit to it? Like, how does it work if you're collaborating as producers?
Right. So for that project, and I'd probably want it this way anyway for future collaborative projects, but it was kind of more like I'd be working on one track with Alanna and then Adam would be working on another. So Adam and I never really had feedback on each other's tracks that we had started. And I think maybe it works better that way, because that way maybe we feel like we have full creative license to, fulfill the song. So yeah, that's how it works.
And do you know Atom personally? Because you're both one of the few American electro swing artists. So like in my head, you guys are like friends and meeting up and having American electro swing parties together and stuff. But is that the case or not?
Well, between Adam and I, it's just been strictly business, We've sent each other a few emails, back when we were working on Lyes here. But yeah, we're like in completely different parts of the country and haven't spoken all that much, but seems like a cool guy. Yeah.
So another collaboration that you have done is with Annella, doing a remix for her track Superman. What was it like working with her, and can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
So when Annella first reached out to me, I was a bit starstruck because she's just got, she's a big deal, and turns out she's like the nicest human I've ever met. Yeah. And I think I'm a nice guy too. So we just kind of we hit it off and we get along really well. But maybe even more importantly, she knows what she wants, and she'll still give me like creative license to, make some creative decisions. But it's actually helpful to work with someone who has a strong vision, because it puts some limitations on what I'm doing and it's challenging, and I like a challenge. So for the Superman remix, she kind of wanted like straight swing, something not necessarily like Riff Kitten dark, which I was cool with, because that's a challenge for me. As I said, like my stuff becomes dark half the time. So working with her has been great, and we're in the works or in talks to create some originals as well right now. So yeah, we get along well.
Cool. So we'll move on to the more general electro swing questions now. What was your very first experience of electro swing?
Yeah, so in college, I was exposed to like a lot of jazz, and I kind of gained an appreciation for it. And then when I graduated, I kind of missed jazz because I wasn't necessarily like super well versed in it, but I liked it. And I think I was just browsing around and I found an article on New Jazz, which had a list of artists, and Parab Steller was on there. So yeah, I checked out like his whole catalog. His early stuff is very jazzy, and then I think over time he kind of integrated more pop and stuff into it. But yeah, once I heard that, like I was sold on the genre. That's how I came across Parab and Electro Swing from that. Definitely a gateway drug.
What would you change about electro swing as a scene at the moment, if you could, if anything?
You know, in my own music too, I've messed around with vintage samples and a lot of that Prohibition era style sound, and that's well and great. And I love cutting up those samples and doing that. But I would like to see more experimentation and innovation within the scene in terms of people like pushing the envelope of what can even be called swing. You know, I think the fans of swing are ready for that. I just feel like the vintagey vibe is cool, but it's been done, and that's personally what I would like to see. I can't speak for everyone though.
Okay, interesting. And this may be a similar answer, but what do you see as the future of electro swing?
I think the future of electro swing still looks good. I think, like I said, it's such fun music that kind of instantly is uplifting and puts you in a good mood and makes you want to dance. And it, at the very least, I think will always have a cult following. I don't know if it'll have like a full resurgence, but I do think like there's so many talented people making swing that I think we will get more and more artists who start to really push the boundaries, and I hope to see that. That'd be cool. Yeah.
So we will move on to the quick fire round now. What is one thing in your career so far that you are most proud of, either creatively or commercially?
Yeah. I would say for me, it would be my song Catatonic off my first album, Kitty Litter. That song it's got a lot of meaning for me. You know, it's I think while I was working on it, I played it for a friend, and he commented like, "Oh wow, that's pretty dark for swing." And from his tone, I was like, "Oh man, you know, how is this even going to be received?" And not that it really matters that much, but still, you start thinking about it. And I put it out there, and I heard from fans who really liked it, and they appreciated the different sound and the dark aspect because it was something new. And to me, that's a big creative and commercial success because, you know, those lyrics are very personal to me, and I think it's close to 1 million streams on Spotify now, without ever getting on like a big editorial playlist or anything. So it's been kind of like a slow grower. And yeah, I feel really good about how that song's done.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And conversely, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced so far?
Oh, definitely like rejection within the music industry. And I think for all of us, our identity can become wrapped up in music. And if the music is not going well, it's like a roller coaster ride. You know, we have ups and downs, and you know, we might have hopes that something will happen and then it doesn't happen, and that's hard. So I guess that's been tricky for me to overcome and to kind of let stuff roll off my back. But come to the realization that, well, in life too, but in music a lot, you have to fail forward. And instead of, you know, taking everything to heart, if you get criticism, if you get feedback, try and understand where the person is coming from and grow and improve and keep going. Because in music, you have to. You know, I think a lot of people think it's like you get discovered and it's an overnight success and everything's, you know, you have a hit song. And at least for me, it's like, no, I mean, there are ups and downs, and you just keep pushing. If it's in your heart, you keep pushing. So
Yeah, definitely. I would totally agree with that, mate. And I would say that with music, it is a bit of a numbers game as well, because you never know what's going to land. And the thing that you think is going to be the big success often isn't. And then the thing that you didn't spend much time on and don't think is going to be massive is the thing that lands. But you don't know until you keep putting it out. You know, I've just put out a song recently which hasn't performed as well as I'd hoped. I do hope that at some point it will like pick up and people will discover it. But in the past, when that's happened, I've thrown my toys out of the pram and then not made any music for months because I'm just like, well, I don't know if I still want to do this anymore anyway. If people aren't going to connect with it, what's the point? And now I'm just like, well, that's disappointing, but I'm going to release my next song, and I'm going to continue to try and release a song once a month or once every 6 weeks and just keep going. And maybe that song will like find an audience in the future. and maybe it won't, and maybe this next song will, and maybe it won't, but like I need to keep putting them out in order for that to happen, because if I stop, then nothing's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I completely agree. Like, it's hard because you invest so much in the music and those ups and downs. Like, I try, I guess, to be more zen about it and just kind of like, well, I'm letting it loose, putting it out there. And if it's meant to be, it'll be, I guess. And that takes maybe just some experience and growth. But
yeah, you mentioned earlier that you felt I was like an intuitive guy as well, and thank you for that. For me, a big lesson that I've learned has been to try and like detach my sense of like worth from the success of the music anyway, because that's not who I am. Do you know what I mean? Like if something does blow up, or I get like a video with 1 million views on TikTok and stuff, that's not going to suddenly make me feel like worthy and happy and fulfilled as a person. It'll be cool for like a brief period of time, and then I'll go back to feeling exactly how I was. So, but that on the flip side of that, it means that when things don't go that way, I can't then go, oh no, I'm a terrible person because my music's not doing well, because the algorithms haven't favored it. Like, you need to be a bit more detached is the word for it, I think.
That could not be more true for me as well. Like, I don't know, I guess, yeah, like I said, I mean, it sounds like you almost have that Zen mindset too. And I think
Trying. It's an ongoing thing, and that, yeah, it's a work in progress.
yeah, there's cycles where you go through, just, getting mad at music and getting mad at your music. And
It's so easy to get attached to the numbers though, isn't it? And like,
yeah,
you get something that does do well and you're just like, yes, I finally made it. And then that's as dangerous as getting upset when things don't go well. Like, either way, you should just be like, cool, it's doing what it's doing. As long as I can afford to keep doing it and I'm enjoying it, that's the best I can ask for.
no, that's spot on. Like, we have worth outside of, I mean, what we do as well. Like, I'm not just Riff Kitten, I'm Andrew. And like you say, it's really hard sometimes when you see those numbers. It's like we have this automatic feedback, and it's really easy to just kind of get caught up in that. I try not to, but it's a work in progress for sure.
So this feels quite prescient considering some of the stuff we've talked about in terms of like disappointment, because like we've both experienced this when you release a track and it doesn't do as well as you'd hoped. What is one track in particular that you thought was going to do really well that didn't, that we can use this as a platform to tell more people to go and listen to?
Yeah, I've got one. It's Fallen World I did with Camijo, and that one did well. It took off, but we did kind of like a follow-up to that a year later, a track called Dreaming in Blue. It's kind of like a moody, slow burn, James Bond style with, I think, just like stellar vocals. I think Camijo is amazing. We both expected a lot more to happen with it, but it never took off. And I listened to it the other day for the first time in like a year, actually. I thought, like, I don't know why, because I love this, but you just can't predict certain things. So I'd say, check out Dreaming in Blue.
Dreaming in Blue, okay.
Stand behind it. Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's
nice.
a good track.
That's great that you still feel that way about the song as well, because I've had it where I'm like, yeah, this one's going to blow up. And then it doesn't. And then I end up resenting the song and being like, oh, actually, I can hear all the reasons why it might not have done. And actually, I dislike it now. And then maybe like once the dust settles, you go back to it and you're like, nah, this is still solid to me. So that's good that you still feel that way as well, and it didn't sort of put you off it.
I can relate. And sometimes it's best to give it that breathing room just so, you can come to it fresh and free of all those like disappointments and judgments and all that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And any final words for fans of your music?
I just wanted to say, thanks to all of you for supporting me on this journey, because I know I've done a lot of experimenting and changes in sound. And, I know that a lot of you on my YouTube, at least, you really embraced that and made me feel good about that, because there are pressures in the industry to, you got to fit into this genre box and whatnot. And it just doesn't necessarily interest me to always do that. So, I just appreciate you all. Yeah.
Wicked. Cool. And then final question, is there anything coming up that you would like to plug or shout out or just generally promote? This is the space to do that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a Riff Kitten summer. I've got in a Alanna Lyes collab coming up. Kind of like a fun banger coming out on July 11th that I can't wait for people to hear. I feel really good about this one. And then a month later in early August, I'm kind of taking a break from swing and releasing an EP of summer tracks that I'd say span like reggaeton, the tropical house, African music. Yeah, so that'll be something different. And I'm feeling good about that too. And lastly, I'd just like to say that I've got a YouTube channel where I post exclusive content and stuff that maybe you've never heard before, some demos and stuff like that too. And yeah, I'd say check that out because a lot of people don't know about it. So,
all right. Well, that wraps everything up. So thank you very much for your time, Riff Kitten. And it's been fascinating to chat to you and to get to know you a little bit because you're another artist that I've never actually spoken to in person prior to this interview. So it's been really good to get to know you, man. And I wish you all the best with the upcoming releases.
Thank you. It was great to meet you too. And thanks for having me. Had a good time just, thinking some of this stuff out loud.
Sweet.
So, thanks.
Awesome. All right, mate. Thank you. So that was episode 11 of the Electro Swing Podcast with Riff Kitten. If you haven't already checked him out, links to his music and socials are in the description. In particular, make sure you check out his YouTube channel, which contains lots of bonus unreleased content. As usual, if you haven't already followed us, please do so at Electro Swing Podcast on all platforms. And you can now sign up to our mailing list at electroswingpodcast.com to receive a heads up about upcoming guests and get the chance to submit your questions. I'll be back in another 2 weeks with another episode of the Electro Swing Podcast, and thank you for tuning in.